Step out of the car now! The officer's voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding. A spotlight burned against her skin as if she were already guilty. He wasn't pointing at the leather-clad biker standing beside her, he was pointing at her. A black woman, apron still dusted with flour from her late shift at the diner. To him, she wasn't a protector, just another suspect. But in less than 24 hours, he would learn the weight of that mistake. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been judged before anyone even knew your story? Before we begin, hit subscribe, it's appreciated. Her name was Clarissa, and for as long as she could remember, the diner had been her world. It wasn't much, just a corner spot off the highway with neon lights that flickered on stormy nights and the smell of coffee that never seemed to fade. To the truckers, bikers, and late-night drifters who stopped in, Clarissa was more than just the woman behind the counter. She was a familiar face, a steady voice, and sometimes the only warmth in the long stretch of dark roads. Clarissa had inherited the diner from her mother, who had worked the grill until her hands could no longer take the heat. The place was small, but it carried decades of stories, laughter, and even heartbreak within its walls. Running it alone wasn't easy. Bills piled up, repairs lingered, and the town wasn't always kind to her. Being a black woman running a business in a mostly white, rural area meant she was constantly proving herself, fighting the unspoken assumptions, the lingering stares, the quiet dismissals. Still, Clarissa kept her head high. She opened her doors every morning before dawn, knowing that for someone out there, her diner might be the only safe stop on the road. She found strength in routine, in the rhythm of the coffee pot and the hum of the jukebox. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. What she didn't know on that particular night was how quickly ordinary could turn into extraordinary. What began as just another late shift, refilling mugs and wiping counters, was about to spiral into something she could never have imagined. The kind of night that tests who you are, what you believe in, and whether you'll stand up when it matters most. And here's a question for you. If you saw someone being unfairly targeted right in front of you, would you stay silent or would you risk everything to protect them? That night, the diner was quieter than usual. The storm outside kept most people home, but one man walked in. Leather jacket heavy with rain, the unmistakable patches of the Hell's Angels on his back. His presence filled the room, and Clarissa felt the stares even before she set down the coffee pot. Locals didn't trust bikers. They saw criminals, troublemakers, outlaws, and for Clarissa, who already carried the weight of being judged by her skin, the tension doubled. But to her, he was just another traveler seeking warmth. She poured him coffee, slid a plate of pie across the counter, and asked no questions. Minutes later, flashing lights cut through the storm. 2 police cruisers pulled into the lot, their beams sweeping across the windows. The air shifted. The biker's jaw tightened. Clarissa's heart sank. The officers came in fast, boots heavy on the floor, hands already resting near their belts. They didn't look at her. They didn't greet her. Their eyes locked on the man in leather, but when he didn't move quickly enough, their tone turned sharp, loud, commanding. "Stand up! Now!" The biker stayed still, his coffee half drained. Clarissa saw it. The way their voices grew harsher, their steps closer, their assumptions written across their faces. To them, he wasn't a man sipping coffee. He was a threat that needed crushing. Clarissa had seen it before, though rarely this close. The way authority could shift from calm to violent in a heartbeat. The way fear could be weaponized, and how easily skin color, clothing, or reputation could turn someone into a target. The first officer shoved the man's shoulder. The second one barked orders, already gripping his cuffs. And in that instant, Clarissa's voice broke through. Calm, steady, but firm. She reminded them he was her customer, that he had been sitting peacefully, that they had no right to drag him out without cause. The diner went still. The officers looked at her with the kind of glare that made clear. They weren't used to being challenged, especially not by someone like her. But Clarissa didn't back down, and here's the twist. The man didn't fight back. He didn't raise his voice. He just lowered his eyes, letting her words shield him. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about whether she'd allow her diner to become another stage for humiliation. As the officers hesitated, Clarissa stepped closer, heart pounding. She knew she was risking everything, her reputation, her safety, even the fragile peace she'd built in that small town. But she also knew what silence would cost. The storm outside roared, lightning flashing against the glass, as if the night itself was daring her to continue. And when she did, when she stood her ground against the uniforms, she had no idea the ripple it would send into tomorrow, because the next morning, everything would change. The shove came harder this time. The sound of chair legs scraping against the diner floor echoing through the empty space. Clarissa's heart nearly stopped as she watched the biker stumble, his hands raised but his face calm, almost resigned. The officer's grip tightened on his holster, and for a breathless second, the air felt like it might explode. Clarissa moved before she even thought. She planted herself between them, her apron streaked with flour, her chest rising and falling with fear and defiance. The silence that followed was deafening. 2 white officers, hands on weapons. A black woman standing in their way, and a biker, an outsider by every measure, waiting to see which way the world would turn. Her voice cut the tension like glass. She told them he was her customer, that he had done nothing wrong, that if they wanted him, they would have to go through her. The words shook in her throat, but she refused to step back. The officers sneered, muttering under their breath, their authority hanging heavy in the air. One of them leaned closer, his face twisted with the kind of contempt that carried more than just anger. It carried years of prejudice, of unspoken warnings about people like her daring to stand tall. The biker didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply sat as if putting his life in her hands, and Clarissa knew the weight of it, a single second stretched into eternity. The storm outside pounded harder, rain slamming against the glass, lightning casting jagged shadows across the walls. And then, the officer pulled back, not with grace, not with respect, but with the kind of retreat that promised this wasn't over. The diner door slammed behind them. The silence they left was heavy, almost unbearable. Clarissa's hands trembled as she steadied herself against the counter. What do you think would happen next? Would those officers come back with vengeance? Or would the world find out what really happened inside that little diner on a stormy night? The morning sun broke through the clouds, the storm finally gone, but Clarissa's nerves still buzzed from the night before. She had barely slept, replaying the moment over and over, wondering if she had made a mistake by stepping in. The diner opened as usual, though her hands shook as she set the tables. She expected whispers, maybe even retaliation, but what she didn't expect was the sound of engines. One, then another, then dozens. The ground itself seemed to rumble as nearly 300 bikers roared down the highway and filled the diner's lot, chrome and leather glinting in the daylight. They weren't there for trouble. They were there for her. Word of what Clarissa had done spread faster than she could have imagined. By standing up when it mattered, she had earned the respect of men who lived by loyalty and brotherhood. These bikers, feared by many, showed up to protect her, not with violence, but with presence. They filled her diner not just with their size, but with their gratitude. For the first time in a long time, Clarissa felt the weight of community, not the one that doubted her, judged her, or whispered about her skin, but one that honored her courage. Still, the truth lingered. The police hadn't forgotten. The stares in town would grow sharper, and Clarissa knew the fight against injustice didn't end with one night in a diner. Her act of defiance was a small light in a much larger storm, a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing comes with risk, but also with unexpected allies. This story isn't just about bikers or a diner. It's about the cost of silence and the power of courage. Because when you choose to stand up, you don't just protect someone else, you change the story for everyone watching. So let me ask you, if the moment came, would you have stood between that man and those officers? Show some love with a like, and subscribe to stay inspired.